Hi everyone, I'm Tanvir Nasir, and this is Leadership Biz Cafe, a podcast that explores some of the challenges and opportunities leaders face in today's increasingly complex, fast-paced, and interconnected global market. Leadership Biz Cafe is brought to you by Tanvir Nasir Leadership, our leadership firm that provides both virtual and in-person leadership keynotes, corporate trainings, and consulting services that will help you to improve the way you lead. To learn more about our services and what some of our clients have had to say about our work, visit our company's website at tanvirnasir.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out my award-winning, internationally acclaimed leadership blog as well. And with that, let's head over to my espresso machine so I can brew up another Leadership Espresso Shot. Have you ever found yourself questioning whether the time had come to leave your current job and look for work elsewhere? It's a common predicament most of us have encountered at one point or another in our careers, of coming across that fork in the road where we have to decide whether to stay the course or go down that less familiar, more uncertain path. While in some cases this choice is fairly obvious, other times that fork in the road might not be as clear in terms of which path really is the best one for us to take. After all, dealing with any kind of change can be a challenge, so it becomes even more daunting when that change involves our letting go of something we've put so much of our time and ourselves into. But it's worth noting here that it's also in these situations that we can also fall into the trap of misplacing our best interests by focusing more on our past contributions, instead of on what we'd stand to gain from maintaining our present course. It's the reason why we find ourselves in jobs which we no longer have any enthusiasm or sense of purpose in, but which we stick with because we keep reminding ourselves of how many years we've invested in it and how we should stick around in order to one day reap the fruits of all that labor. With this in mind, I'd like to share the following 4 questions you can ask yourself to help you better understand your current leadership role so you can get a clearer picture as to whether you could really do what you set up to accomplish or whether it's really time to move on. The first question is, can you resolve the issues that are the source of your discontent? Many times when we start feeling the need to change our work setting, it's often because of some relationship at work that's soured or become unbearable. In some cases, this could be having to deal with a certain colleague. Other times, it can be having to deal with an increasingly difficult boss. Most of us have inadvertently learned that when faced with such situations, it's best to simply cut your losses and leave instead of attempting to do something to try and resolve the situation. Now, in some cases, those you work with or for might not be aware of the negative environment they're fostering. And honestly, it's always best to give people the benefit of the doubt if you're genuinely interested in resolving the situation. Unfortunately, in other cases, the response you get from the offending party is one of indifference or worse, getting that proverbial line of how this is how things are done around here and to suck it up. If that's the case, then the answer becomes all too clear. The second question to ask yourself is, what would you be giving up if you were to leave this organization? Let's face it, there's no perfect workplace environment out there, though some companies are far better to work for than others. Regardless, we all have moments where we love our job and the team we work with, and other times where these same factors become a pain in our side, a source of frustration and emotional fatigue. But even in those worst of times, there are still aspects of working for a particular organization or team that we really value and appreciate. Looking back on the many conversations I've had with leaders about the good and bad about doing their job, they all had those stories of when one of their employees achieved some big success or achievement, and how that moment fills them with pride over how they were able to create conditions that allowed their employees to excel. Without question, being able to create those kinds of moments is uplifting, and if you can still create it, it's certainly a compelling reason to put in the stay column. The third question to ask is, do your contributions matter to the organization's shared purpose? And do others value it? Obviously, we'd all like to know that our efforts make a difference in the ability of our team or organization to succeed in reaching our shared goal. But what if others in your company do not view your contributions as being significant or vital to the organization's success? It's certainly not uncommon if we think of all the times we've heard people complaining about how their efforts at work are not appreciated by their colleagues. In such cases, one has to consider the possibility that the reason behind this treatment is simply because others in the organization don't view your contribution as being as significant as you do. As much as we all need to pay our bills, the reality is that it's not enough for us to simply clock in every day and just work our way through our to-do lists. We also need to know that our efforts contribute in a meaningful way to the shared purpose of our team and organization. And finally, the fourth question you should ask yourself is, what opportunities would you be giving up by sticking around? In economics, there is a term called opportunity cost, which basically refers to the financial cost of passing up one choice in favor of another. This concept can also be applied here, where the cost in staying where we are is the opportunities we miss out on to seek growth and challenges elsewhere. Granted, it can be scary to consider giving up the familiar, even if it is unpleasant at times, for something vague and untested. That's why I particularly like this question, as it gets us to look at whether the cost of playing it safe is really worth giving up the chance at exploring new avenues for growth and potential happiness. Of course, these questions aren't meant to serve as a crystal ball, magically providing you with a quick answer when faced with such a difficult situation. What they will do, though, is help you gain some context for the situation in order to find the path that best meets the goals you have in mind for what you want to achieve. And as difficult as it can be to detach ourselves from whatever past contributions we've made to an organization or team, it's still important that we make this effort so we can properly evaluate whether the opportunities and work relationships we have right now are still the right ones for us. That they allow us to do the work that gives us a sense of purpose and fulfillment while striving to be the kind of leader we want to be. By freeing ourselves from looking backwards at our past contributions and achievements, we give ourselves the permission to look forward and explore avenues to find new opportunities that will allow us to not only continue to contribute in a meaningful way, but to grow and evolve in the process. By keeping our focus not on what we've given of ourselves, but on where we'd like to go next, we also stand a greater chance of living the life we were meant to live. And I think that's a perfect spot for us to wrap up another Leadership Espresso Shot. Once again, I hope this latest installment in this series has given you some food for thought on how effective you are in your current role, and whether it's time to explore other options that will allow you to continue to grow and evolve into that better version of who you can be. Depending on how you answer these 4 questions, you should have greater clarity as to which path to take going forward. So, if you enjoyed learning about this or other insights I've discussed here on my leadership podcast, and you'd be interested in having me share them with your employees, I'd like to invite you to fill out the contact form on our website at tanvidnasir.com so we can start that discussion. You could also check out my speaking page on our company website to learn more about my speaking services and the kinds of topics I cover. In the meantime, I'd like to encourage you to share this or other episodes of my podcast with your colleagues and employees. Easiest way to do this is to simply share a link to my show's podcast page at tanvidnasir.com/LBC. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review my leadership podcast on your preferred podcast platform. And with that, I'm Tanvid Nasir, and you've been listening to Leadership Biz Cafe.